it's incumbent upon media, institutions, it's incumbent upon scholars, it's incumbent upon anybody who feels that an informed citizenry matters to actually tell their fellow citizens, no, QAnon is false, QAnon is not real, and then point them to evidence showing why.
Welcome to another episode of Just Informed Talk. In case you guys are wondering, that is the Washington Post's latest anti-QAnon PSA. We're going to take a look at that. Plus, we're going to look at the latest new Q posts where we talk about Ann Coulter getting some sort of payment. Is that true from Mitt Romney? And we're going to talk about much, much more. Hi, I'm Craig, and welcome to Just Informed Talk. For those of you who don't know, every time I start, I like to say thank you to everybody who's hit that subscribe button. You guys are what make this channel work. If you haven't, please come here to the landing page, click the big red subscribe button, make sure you hit the bell for notifications, and make sure you hit the like button if you guys like this video and this content that's being produced here on the channel. So, this is where we're going to pick up, guys. It's right where we left off. Obviously, the last video we did, we went up to Q post 2839, and today we're going to be starting with Q post 2840. And I always tell everyone who hasn't, if you guys want to get caught up to the latest Q posts and what we've been doing here, go back and watch the videos as far back as you can, because there's a lot of great content there. And if you're scratching your head going, what is QAnon, the Great Awakening? Please come here, watch this video. It tells you everything you need to know about QAnon, the Great Awakening, and what it is, how to get involved, how to do the research, all that good stuff you can find there. Today we have a pretty incredible episode. First, before we even get into this, yes, this is a real thing. The Washington Post just put this video up yesterday. Basically, it says, how QAnon, the bizarre pro-Trump conspiracy theory, took hold in right-wing circles online. And if you guys didn't know, the part that you just saw was out of this. The part you guys saw at the beginning of this video was straight out of this PSA. And basically, they're telling you now to go out and to argue and debate and tell your friends why that QAnon is fake. And you're supposed to cite all the fake news articles too, which I love. That's my favorite part, because I have friends that do this to me. People I've known for a long time. You know, when I even mention QAnon, they pull out NBC News articles, Media Matters articles, Washington Post articles, New York Times articles, and they're like, look, it's a deranged conspiracy theory. Craig, don't you understand? It's Pizzagate on bath salts. You've lost your mind. And here, I'll let the people at the Washington Post kind of explain what QAnon is in their own words.
QAnon is, in essence, a conspiracy theory that gives hope to people who want the things it says to be true.
It gives hope to people who wants the things it says to be true. Kind of like your newspaper gives hope to those who want to believe that President Trump is a Russian agent. They want that to be true, and your paper does such a great job at providing them the hope that they need to believe that even though there's no evidence of Russia collusion up to this point, somehow, some way, the Washington Post will expose the Russian collusion that never happened. So let's keep going.
According to the conspiracy theory, Trump is actually leading an effort to prosecute villainous Democrats, most of whom are engaged in baby sex trafficking rings. And
what? Like, what did that guy just say? Did he say baby sex trafficking rings? This is from the Washington Post. I'm just showing you what they put on their channel. But first of all, there are elites who are involved in sex trafficking rings. Jeffrey Epstein would be a great example of one. And we can start there and go outward to many others. Sandusky and the whole 9 yards here. But the fact that they make these statements in a way that's supposed to basically make you believe that this is some sort of heinously absurd conspiracy theory with absolutely nothing to validate it, and then using these obscenely suggestive terms about things that not many people in the movement really suggest, and that there's actually ample proof to show, as we are going to talk about in this video, people like Jeffrey Epstein and others who got sweetheart deals because the administrations that were in charge during the time of their prosecution worked basically in order to give them effectively smaller sentences. And that's the case of Jeffrey Epstein, who took advantage of many young women in what would be considered teenage sex trafficking rings. So, look, this is how they conflate the issues. Let's keep going.
And committing other heinous crimes.
It also wraps in deep state conspiracy theories. It is used as a hopeful way to explain things like the Mueller probe into the Trump campaign.
A hopeful way to explain the Mueller probe into the Trump campaign? So you mean as in hopeful, a truthful way? A way that we are examining facts and realizing that it's been 2 years almost and there's no evidence of anything, no Russian collusion evidence whatsoever. But yeah, we're just hopefully trying to explain away this whole Mueller Russia hoax investigation that's obviously meant to stall for the next election and be used as political fodder to keep President Trump from getting reelected. But no. By all means, Miss Abby, please, you look like you're really a QAnon expert. Let's keep listening.
I personally believe that much of what we are...
Okay, so it goes into Jordan Sather here now, and he has some good explanations, but I'm going to kind of skip forward to another part here that I thought was important.
Scenes.
Although Trump hasn't given any indication that he is aware of QAnon or believes it, he is the person who, I guess, inadvertently started it. He made a cryptic statement to reporters in early October where he talked about the coming storm, a statement that he then refused to explain. The phrase "the storm" has come to be super important to...
I just have to point out the absurdity of the insinuation of what was just said there. It was like, yeah, he inadvertently started it by making this, off the cuff remark with every general in the room and admiral. And yeah, it was just, totally accidental because that was not coordinated at all. Anyway, this thing goes on and on. It talks about the storm, and then it talks about how everybody's up for impeachment and how it was allowed into the Q rallies. And it wraps up basically with what we looked at before, where they basically tell you in no uncertain terms, it's incumbent upon anybody who feels that an informed citizenry matters to actually tell their fellow citizens, no, QAnon is false. QAnon is not real. And that's where it ends. And you're like, are you kidding me? Like, they just are outright coming out and trying to fight it. Well, the CIA the Washington Post, whatever you want to call them, I guess, they are involved in certain things that we should really pay attention to. And let's just understand that this is just another way that they're going to come after the movement that is here. And yeah, I just had to start with that. So yeah, that was just an honest commentary on that video, which they made a commentary on the subject matter that I covered here for quite some time. So yeah, I feel like that was a fair use and commentary of it. So here, let's jump right into this newest Q post. We have a bunch to go over, so you guys want to stick around. First of all, it's Sebastian Gorka's tweet, which actually says Ann Coulter is now a never Trump conservative. Funny. That's interesting. That's what the Anon says, who posts this tweet, to which Q responds, Mitt Romney, wire transfers are a convenient way of transferring money. Q, I think there's an insinuation being made here about some sort of wire transfer between Ann Coulter and Mitt Romney, but maybe I'm wrong. So the next one is kind of funny. Obviously, it's pointing here to this Ann Coulter post from November 7th of 2012, where she said she felt so sorry for Mitt Romney, but sorrier for the country that will never have him as president. Yes. Thank you, Ann Coulter. What an epic piece of information that you shared there. So Q basically says happy hunting, right? That's a place to start when the connection to Mitt Romney is made. Then, of course, the next one here, Q posts these two Twitter posts. One that says how sorry she felt for Mitt Romney after he lost in 2012 to Barack Obama, and another one here that basically says the exact opposite. Poor Utah Republicans. If only they had a carpetbagging, flip-flopping, Trump bashing, clueless twit of a Senate candidate. Oh, wait. Well, interestingly enough, now Ann Coulter is a never Trumper, so I guess she could be put into both these categories of flip-flopping and Trump bashing. But yeah, you can go ahead and make of that, and carpetbagging, I guess, as well. And yeah, this is hilarious, though. So what Q's pointing out is the complete irony, and then the suggestion is being made by Q that there is some sort of money that was exchanged somewhere along the line. But it says hypocrite, it says history of flip-flopping. What made her flop this time? It says wire transfers are an effective way at swaying opinions. Shills come in many different forms. Race to build a base, followers to build worth to draw funds. Common these days. Q. And I could not agree more with everything that was kind of posited here. The question was asked, though, that, who's really got the history of flip-flopping? I mean, you can obviously tell back in 2012 she was adamantly she really wanted Mitt Romney, to become the president, apparently. And then in 2018, when it was politically expedient for her to basically continue to build her base of followers, she was more than willing to call him a carpetbagger and flip-flopper and a Trump basher. Then once, I guess, apparently there was some sort of, I mean, this is all speculation at this point, obviously, but there was some money that was transferred. Now she's apparently against Trump now again, a never Trumper. So that just seems to be a common theme these days. Yeah, it's pretty common, and that seems to be happening, and that's just who Ann Coulter seems to be. So, she seems to have, her personality is her business, that's her brand, and she's making her choices, and she's going to have to live with, the consequences that exist in the fair market. You make a choice, and people either buy your book or they don't. I mean, that's... I guess that's the way it goes, right? So next one here is an anon, Q posting back to an anon who basically says this. Oh, and by the way, I wanted to share this. There was this person over here an anon over on the vote boards, the QRV vote boards, that made this comment that I thought was great. It said, learn from Ann Coulter example as you will need it moving forward. It says, this is a test. People who you might have read or might have agreed with, people who once supported your views may in fact turn out to be paid off or without any allegiance but to money and power. I think we need to see this as a sign of things to come, and the better we adjust to these notions, the easier our journey will be. Coulter is in nobody, but the mechanics of adaptation and understanding will be the same as when you find out the people you met, looked up to perhaps growing up or perhaps now are all compromised. It says, be well and nurture a sense of principle as you wade through the swamp where we go when we will. And I thought this was a very intelligent and thoughtful way of understanding what Q was basically saying there. So I thought that I just wanted to share it with you, because when I read that, I thought, wow, that's a very interesting and thoughtful way of looking at it. Now, the next one is Anon here posts this saying, the end is near and there will be no charges against the president. And that was apparently John Solomon on Hannity. So Q responds to that by saying, but you already knew that, but you knew that already. Hence why Adam Schiff, the Southern District of New York, with Michael Cohen and Maxine Waters, are attempting to keep the insurance scheme ongoing post-Mueller. It says, fear. The fun begins directly after. This will make the Super Bowl look like a puppy show. And of course, to understand kind of where they're going with this, the first thing I think you have to understand is that the media is not going to drop this, and they're trying to drive this antagonistic wedge between ourselves and Russia. Not that we don't have some dissimilarities and we don't have different interests or competing interests, if you will, globally. For the left to claim to want peace, they are the most hawkish individuals that I've come to follow and look at in the news mostly, because they're the ones that want these divisions to grow. And you don't have to look that much further than just looking at the headlines that are coming out. First of all, here's one that just came out of Reuters. And the headline says this, and this is, I want to show you the way they write headlines. The headline says, Putin to U.S., I'm ready for another Cuban missile-style crisis if you want one. Now, that sounds like a pretty antagonistic thing to say. It even sounds like it was almost made in a threatening manner. But if you actually go down and read the real quote, this is really what happened and what was said here. It says, the tensions, and this is President Putin talking, are not a reason to ratchet up confrontation to the levels of the Cuban Missile Crisis in the 1960s. In any case, that's not what we want. He goes on to say, if someone wants that, well, okay, they are welcome. I have set out today what that would mean. Let them count. And it talks about the missile flight times. Now, again, this is not a friendly statement, I wouldn't say, but I think the way that headline twisted what was actually said here is indicative of the way the media portrays our confrontational relationship with Russia, and instead of promoting the dialogue and conversation that works toward peace, they want to make them into the enemy of the people, this continuous existential threat, right, that can be drawn on at any given time to scare people into following a narrative that they would like to create. And I think that's exemplified perfectly with what Q says here about fear. And I thought I wanted to share that as well, because when Q says the Super Bowl looked like puppy show, I don't know what that means about what's coming up. Although I will say that the first thing that came to my mind was what happened with No Name and the National Dog Day. And that to me is the first thing that came to my mind. But if you guys have different thoughts on what this could be referring to, I'd love to hear them down in the comments. And of course, they're going to push this insurance thing, and they're going to keep going on about Russia. And of course, Adam Schiff is going to continue to push us into further division with Russia. Now, I'm not saying whether that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing. All I'm saying is that that seems to be the direction that we are being pushed from that individual and his committee that he is chairing now, that will be launching more investigations into President Trump as we move forward. So you guys have that to look forward to. Anyway, the next one here is this Twitter post from this guy, Julian's Rum, and it talks holy expletive, holy, you know what. It says how this is this is a Q proof, and it talks about these two things. First of all, you guys remember back on January 29, 2018, we had this post from Q about people meeting in a skiff at the Capitol building in D.C., right? And they were talking about how it was in real time. There were 7 Congress members, there were 3 senators, and 2 former Obama senior officials, 4 outside contractors that did not have classified, top secret, or sensitive level clearance, right? And they were meeting in a skiff in the Capitol building in D.C. is what was told here by Q back then. Now you compare that to this, which Paul Sperry is reporting as of yesterday, that there is a breaking story that McCabe said Rosenstein tried to bounce the GOP Republican Devin Nunes out of the House Intelligence Committee from the Capitol basement skiff when he and McCabe briefed the Gang of 8 about opening an espionage and obstruction investigation on Trump in May of 2017. So these are the same people that bounced, obviously, Devin Nunes out. This is their meeting place. They're meeting in a skiff on Capitol Hill, and then Q has a special message about all this. It says, what is the process to enter a skiff? What security level must exist in order to gain entry? Can non-security level persons be invited to participate? Do logs exist for each designated meeting? Do logs record time in, time out, who in, who out? It says ability to enter a range without paper trail. And then it talks about real time. Look at January 29th, 2018, and identify. This says not for anons. Identify January 29th, 2018, and run back 1-2. Not for anons. So I'm thinking that these two might be messages for people who have access to those logs. For instance, somebody like Devin Nunes who could go look and pull up the logs and say, well, who was in here at this time? And then what meeting was that about? It says skiff logs can be very revealing. Hussein's USS United States Secret Service codename, Renegade. Define renegade. Noun. 1. A person who deserts and betrays an organization, country, or set of principles. Synonyms. Traitor, defector, deserter, turncoat, betrayer. Q. So, yeah. Look at this. I mean, this is pretty incredible just in and of itself. When you read through this post, it kind of identifies a few different things that we may not have been able to put together back at the time when we got this original Q post, but now it all makes sense that this is where they were meeting. And then I think this is a message, like I said right here, for people who are not part of this Anon board doing the research, maybe people who have the actual clearances to see the logs for that skiff for that day and time, okay? That would be an interesting one. And the answer to all these questions are, according to Q, you don't need a security clearance to get in there. The logs can be basically manipulated somehow, and maybe they used names. Maybe they used the actual Renegade nickname. Who knows? It'd be very interesting to see what actually comes of this. But I think it's a very important proof of Q, just another way to look at the information we've gotten and how the future continues to prove past. Now, here's another one that I thought was funny. There's an Ann on the board that apparently is not so anonymous. This woman named Elizabeth from Tampa Bay Times, I guess. She's on the actual HM boards, right? Which I don't know what this person's thinking. You don't report straight from the boards, but good luck to you, right? It says, you should see the responses to her. It's hilarious. It says, doing on a balanced story on Q for this Sunday's paper. Wanted your input on the biggest thing that happened this week. Will be a fair article. Been following this board somewhat, so save the flaming comments and give honest input. EK. So Q actually responds to this person, believe it or not. I mean, I guess if the reporter is smart enough to actually go to the Q board to ask for a official response from Q and Q gives her one, then that's good on you, right? But the rest of the board did not really take kindly to this. So anyway, Q gives her this. What is this? A funny picture. And right here where it talks about this guy, Ed Poole, is a Labour Party over in Britain, mad at this woman, Joanne Ryan Field, who was left the Labour Party. And basically, this guy, Ed Pools, is tweeting about how mad he was that he had a hernia when he was canvassing to get her elected, and how, and then she just declared, basically, you can see here on her page, she says, after 4 decades, she's made the terribly difficult decision to resign from the Labour Party. Good for her, because the Labour Party is like, it would be like the U.S. version of the Democrat Party, let's put it that way. Probably even worse in a lot of regards. So anyway, she decides to leave it. This guy's upset. Who is this guy, Ryan or Ed Poole? He has this as his cover picture. I think that's about all you need to know about a little Eddie Poole there. And his little constituent, John McDonnell, has a comment to make, and that's what Q is wanting us to look at here. Obviously, when he posted this and he was all upset that she left their left-wing party, the guy responds with Q. She left because of Q. Well, see, Q woke her up to it and she left, and I think that was the insinuation that was being made there. And Q says, we are the news now worldwide, Q. So it's even influencing politics in other countries, and that's an incredible thing, you know, that we are the resurgence of the American Revolution here in our country, standing up to globalism, standing up to these monolithic globalist elites who want to take away all of our individual liberties and want to turn our country into a socialist, dystopia. So that's something to definitely stand up against, in my opinion. Anyway, the next one here is just talking about how more Q is being referenced. Apparently, this is from this person named Judah's. Let me pull this up. Oh, I don't think I have it. But anyway, it's Judah's Trumpets, Lion of Judah. And it's this, I guess, a screenshot from FBI episode 13. I don't know. Probably something that is on in somewhere, some major network. I don't know the show, so I couldn't find that. But anyway, not that it matters. Like we saw in the last video yesterday, Q is getting mentioned in these mainstream TV shows, and now you have this. It's talking about Q and what the heck is that? So just another reference. And like I said, I made this clear yesterday. It's called the Q inoculation. Do you understand? That's like the video I start this episode off with, that their little PSA from the Washington Post, just like what you saw on CBS and the NCIS reference. It's inoculating the public against Q. It's planting the seed in their mind to associate Q with a conspiracy theory, with fake conspiracy theories and these different issues that have been conflated with other issues, like, for instance, how in the NCIS thing, it was mentioned with Pizzagate and the fake moon landing. It's just meant to conflate and make people have that sow that seed of doubt before they see it. So that when they see it with a skeptical eye. They see it with a different perspective than they would have if they had come into it with an open mind. And that, to me, is what they're doing right now, because they understand the power of what Q and the movement is, right? But it says, be ready for the quote-unquote Q anons. And you know what the Q is, right? The Q is the question when it's asked to President Trump if he knows or supports QAnon. We don't know when that's going to come. And to be quite honest, at this point, I don't even know what the plan is for that. If President Trump's going to say I don't know, or if he's going to say yes or no, I don't know. But I know it's probably going to be something that we'll have to wait and see how that all turns out. And it says eyes are on increasing plus each day. You are now the news, or you are the news now. Handle with care, Q. So of course that's what we're doing. And guys, the Q may come. Who knows? Surprised we made it this far, right? All right, now here's one that's pretty crazy. Okay, so this is like a warning we all need to be aware of. If you guys remember back in April, Q made this reference to babies on the floor putting the Clorox on their hands, and they touch their mouth, and then that's how a lot of certain diseases can get started from birth. And that was actually a code, right? Because one of the anons said here, and Q kind of corrected and said that it was right, that was this the reference to the Syria false flag, where they were, having these chemical attacks in Syria. And Q says, finally, chemicals, learn our comms, Q, right? People, you have to understand that that post was made, obviously there might have been some truth to what that post was saying, but at the same time, it was some sort of coded message to say, look to something that may be coming. Now, giving us that example, Q gives us this article right here. This article talks about why kids may be at risk from vinyl floors and fire-resistant couches. It talks about the chemicals, these semi-volatile organic compounds that have been linked to many different health problems in children. Now, I'll link this in the description if you want to actually read through this. And there is a lot of fascinating science and information that seems to be have been put together for this. But this is also something to be thought of. You have more than you know. 5-5, Q. Do you understand? What Q's asking is, do you understand that when this article is posted right here, this is a warning about something that may mean something else, if that makes sense? Like what was suggested here by Q, that it was the way of telling us, hey, look at chemicals in some sort of false flag, was the insinuation, I guess. And that's what basically Q was confirming here. And I'm just reporting the news and telling you what this says and giving you an interpretation of it, right? So that's exactly what that means. And I think that means we need to be careful. And if you see something, say something, go to your local authorities. If there's anything suspicious at all, please do us all a favor and don't be afraid to report it and get the local authorities involved. And just, that's where you need to start, especially if you see something in your own neighborhood, something that just doesn't look right or doesn't seem right. And then globally, the same thing. Just be careful, and hopefully people out there in the world will stay safe, and we won't have any craziness. But this is all crazy, I guess. Anyway, the next one here is something that I had talked about, and we had talked about here on the boards before, but I had mentioned in particular that it is sad to see what happened with Jeffrey Epstein and his case, and the amount of women that are now coming forward and saying that they were abused by this man, and that he basically got a sweetheart deal and barely got sentenced. And now the Secretary of Labor in our country, Alexander Acosta, was one of the prosecutors who was involved in this case. But even he says, and I think which is a fair statement, that his hands were tied. What happened was, it wasn't the fact that he wanted, as a federal prosecutor, to give Epstein a sweetheart deal. What his remarks were, as far as I can tell, and what others have said, is that Jeffrey Epstein's lawyers kept appealing and escalating the process in court all the way up until the U.S. Attorney General, and that from there was guidance given, and then the case was settled the way it was. Now, that means that it's not, you can't be like, oh, it's Alexander, or it's the U.S. Labor Secretary here, Alexander Acosta. You can't say that it's just him. You have to look at the structure of the system. Who was the president at the time, right? Who was the one in charge of these deals being made? And that, to me, is what you have to look at. And going back to the actual post, Q says, equal justice under the law or rigged system. Being a Clinton donor really pays off, Q. So, guys, it's being laid out for us exactly what it is. you know, he was a huge Clinton donor, and there's a lot of speculation about Jeffrey Epstein, all the different things that went on with him and his influence with others. I've even had all these different theories that I've looked at about it, and including stuff that talks about certain individuals. But, you know, ultimately, at the end of the day, this guy was into some weird stuff, and according to a lot of the reports and the convictions, you know, he got away basically with some pretty heinous stuff, and now he lives in the Virgin Islands, and he basically has a new private jet and spends most of his time abroad in different foreign countries. Even though he's registered as a sex offender here in the United States, that doesn't matter. He's still living abroad and doing what he wants, it seems. So anyway, the next one here is obviously, you guys have been watching this in the news about Jesse Smollett. It says, hate hoax by Smollett, false flag designed to pass anti-lynching law, gets wall-to-wall fake news coverage. Real hate, real violence, and fascism carried out by members of Antifa gets zero coverage. Reconcile. 1 equals 1. When will the FBI conclude their investigation into Antifa? What happens if the phone records of Smollett leak? Who did he talk to multiple times prior to turning himself in? Political forces at work? Enemy of the people? Q. So this post here begs a really important question. Was Jussie Smollett in contact with members of Antifa? Was he being directed by members of Antifa? Who were those members of Antifa? If he was in contact with them, who were they in contact with inside of our government? What offices could they be linked to? Could it possibly be linked to people like Cory Booker and Kamala Harris? These are very important questions that we need to ask. And these are some great points that are brought up by Q. Because the FBI has been investigating Antifa. When will that investigation conclude? Do the phone records of certain individuals who are in Antifa link up with phone calls made from the phone of Jussie Smollett? That's another good question. Could there have been much more political motivation behind that whole thing than we even acknowledge as of now? Although the media has acknowledged that he's a liar, the Chicago police have picked him up on charges, and it seems that he will be brought on charges of basically lying and creating a false police report. Also, the question remains, where did the motivation from this come from? Was it really what they want us to believe now, where it was, oh, he was just unhappy with his salary and he was trying to do a publicity stunt? Or was there some much, much, much more deep political motivations and forces at work behind the scenes? Think about it. Think about how people get elevated into the realm of martyrdom and become national public figures overnight, such as Colin Kaepernick, from these certain incidences that seem to be racially motivated. Now, that to me is something, I mean, it just shows how the system is working just in a disgusting way, if that's true. So I'm just going to leave that there. Now, the next one here is an article about Jussie Smollett, and it talks about his how his latest basically criminal hoax, pretending to be the victim of a hate crime, is not the first. It talks about all of these different examples, and I'm going to leave this article if you guys want to read it, but there are so many examples. For example, this woman said that she was driving home around 11 p.m. on September 2nd of 2018 when 4 teens confronted her, yelled Trump 2016, and told her she didn't belong there. The next day, she told police the tire of her car had been slashed and a note left behind that read, "Go home." Police investigation discovered that Lewis's alleged confrontation with the teenagers never occurred and that she had written the note for herself. Another one. Here's a man who admits to tagging his own car with racist graffiti. Here's another one. Muslim woman was called a terrorist and attacked on a train last week is reported missing because it turns out a month after the 2016 or within 2 weeks of her claims, police said she admitted to lying because she had broken her curfew. She was arrested on charges. And again, it just goes on and on and on. Multiple examples of this. And this is technically, if you understand what a false flag is in its definition, that is what it is. They're basically committing these crimes in order to incite violence against a group who they perceive to be the enemy. Even if they can portray themselves as the victim of a group that they're targeting, then they can use that victim status to actually initiate hatred and violence and action against that group that they hated to begin with. It's quite simple, right? So that's what I think we're being pointed to by Q. And Q's just saying this is, notice a trend by liberals and Democrats. This is fake, fake, fake. They will stop at nothing to regain power. Hashtag wake up America Q. Now, I don't think we should dismiss all claims of hate crimes and things that happen. There are things that happen that are terrible in this country. And there are injustices, and I want to make that very clear. But I'd like to also point out that people like Jussie Smollett should be ashamed of themselves, and they should be held to the highest standard and weight that the law bears in dealing with individuals who commit these kind of crimes, the harshest sentences that are possible under law. Because what does this do? All it does is promote division. It promotes violence. It promotes retribution. It promotes all of the worst things about our culture and society that we wouldn't want to have promoted. And that's what it ends up doing. And that's why it's dangerous. So I just thought that's interesting to point out. Of course, here Q says this meme matters. There's memes and more memes. Why are memes so important, Q? Well, memes are important because they convey so much in just a little bit of space. And this is funny. It calls this family of nice people a fringe, crazy, deranged fringe, right? And this is normal. These are people dressed up in drag with a Trump balloon with him in a diaper. So yeah, that's normal. Okay. The next one, as we get more here, is basically a shout out to what memes there are out there that say so much without saying anything at all, right? First of all, here's one from Right Side News, which actually talks about what the media wants you to believe is happening, where you have a Democrat here being bullied by a bunch of Republicans, but it's what's really happening is the Republican who is being ganged up on here by Democrats. And again, the next one, obviously, is another one that just says patriots have no skin color, and this is so true. You know, we are all just patriots in this country, God-fearing patriots who want the best for our country, and not just in the United States, but across the globe, right? So, again, Q's giving us all these hashtags. I'm going to put them all on Twitter. Hashtag truth matters and hashtag facts matters. Hashtag we stand together. United, not divided. Where we go when we go all. All right, now the next two are very fascinating, discussing the uncontrollable debt in California. Of course, first you have this top 4 reasons California is unsustainable, and it gives you the top 4 reasons basically why California is an unsustainable debt bubble that's getting ready to burst, where it talks about their infrastructure deficit, talks about their government debt, talks about their taxes and regulations being some of the highest in the country, and the California government in general not working to curtail spending. And of course, everything that's outlined here in the article, you guys can go read for yourself. But Q wants us to understand. It says they know what's best for our country. And you're thinking about all these people from California. Nancy Pelosi, Maxine Waters, Adam Schiff, Feinstein, Harris, and Ted Lieu. These people have been in Congress. Pelosi since 87. Maxine Waters, 91. Schiff since 2001. And Feinstein since 92. And they know what's great for our country when they're running one of the worst examples of how an economy should be run in the world. It says lead by example. California estimated $2 trillion in debt. Homelessness, population on the rise, highest tax rates in the country, undocumented immigrants in California versus nation. There's so many more. Uncontrollable state government spending. If you can't fix your own home state, what makes you think you can fix the country? And it gives a quote from the article where it says, if you are living in one of the 49 other states, you should learn from the lesson that is California. If you are living in California, there is always the lesson of how Michigan came to be governed by a more centrist government. Of course, that came after the failure of the prior government. For now, however, for all its concern for sustainable food and products, California is on a high-speed rail to unsustainability. Hashtag facts matter Q. And this is just telling us, these are the individuals who are running these investigations, who want to run our country, and they're trying to tell us that they know what's best. Do we want the United States to become the next California? I mean, that's really the question. Does uncontrollable tax and spend government sound good to you? Does huge bubbling deficits sound good to you and debts? That, to me, is what you would get. And for everyone who wants to argue about the economics of California and all that stuff, the reality is this. We know the numbers. We look through the numbers. You can read this article if you want for yourself. And that's really where I'll leave that. And of course, the next one, Q points to this. The North Carolina Elections Board has ordered a new House election. So we might get another seat in the House if the results from this election end up favoring the candidate who made the request, Mark Harris, the Republican candidate who lost, and they said that the tainted ballots, absentee ballots, which were tainted, they tainted the results of the election, and therefore they want a new vote. And that's coming, and Q says, of course, welcome to the Democrat Party. They will stop at nothing to regain power. Time to adopt voter ID law. Q. So this is it. We're going to have to wait and see where that all ends up. And thank you for watching Just Informed Talk. A few more things before you go. If you guys want to help out the channel, hit the subscribe button. Make sure you hit the bell for notifications and hit that like button if you guys like what you just saw. Also, don't forget to leave your thoughts, theories, and insights down in the comments. Hit that like button. That helps out. Please hit the like button. Smash the like button. But that helps out big time. Watch these videos. Share them on your social media. Get the word out there that way. Also, you can come find me over here on Twitter at JustInformYou, where you'll get all my clever and awesome, amazing tweets. Thought-provoking indeed. You can come over here and find me again at JustInformYou on Twitter, and also make sure you come over here and find justinformednews.com. It's a great tool for you guys. It's got links to all the Q stuff, links to different news websites, different news feeds, and it's got the YouTube videos here you can come get on justinformednews.com. That's a good way to help. Also, a couple other ways you can help out. You can come over here to Patreon. It's a crowdfunding website, and yes, you guys do help manufacture the content here, because YouTube is not doing anyone any favors. It's not just demonetization. It's how just recently, now that they've changed the algorithms so that my videos don't make it into the suggested videos, I mean, you talk about a drop in traffic. So I depend on you guys to share these videos, and I can't believe how much support you guys are able to give, and I appreciate it. It means the world to me, and that's why I work every day to provide this information to you. Also, I have a GoFundMe page that I set up. If you just want to do a one-time donation, both the links to these will be down in the description. So I thank you in advance for checking that out and contributing to the work that's done here. So that being said, before we go, I always like to take a second to talk about God's grace and how it is greater, in a segment we do at the end of each one of these episodes, where we look at a piece of scripture and we just talk about what we can take away from that'll help us go into the world and be the men and women that God needs us to be. So for that, I've chosen this verse out of 2 Peter. It's chapter 1, verses 3 through 11, and I want to share with you. It talks about growing in your faith. It says, "For his divine power has given us everything required for life and godliness, through the knowledge of him who called us by his own glory and goodness. By these he has given us very great and precious promises, so that through them you may share in the divine nature, escaping the corruption that is in the world because of evil desires. For this reason, make every effort to supplement your faith with goodness, goodness with knowledge, knowledge with self-control, self-control with endurance, endurance with godliness, godliness with brotherly affection, and brotherly affection with love. For if these qualities are yours and are increasing, they will keep you from being useless or unfruitful in the knowledge of the Lord Jesus Christ. The person who lacks these things is blind and short-sighted and has forgotten the cleansing from his past sins. Therefore, brothers, make every effort to confirm your calling and election, because if you do these things, you will never stumble. For in this way, entry into the eternal kingdom of our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ, will be richly supplied to you." And those words to me represent the way we should hope to grow in our faith. And it gives us an outline right here. It tells us we need to supplement our faith with goodness, and our goodness with knowledge. And that knowledge we need to take and temper with self-control. And that self-control we need to put into our everyday life with endurance. And that endurance we need to supplement with godliness. And then that godliness we need to transform into brotherly affection. And that brotherly affection, my friends, we need to turn into love. And there's the blueprint. That's how we grow in our faith. And that's how we continue to move forward with our whole lives put to God, through God, for God, and by God. And I thank you guys for joining me here. And that's the message for today. I want to say thank you guys for watching. Make sure you come here if you haven't already. Click the big red subscribe button. Now's a great time to do it. And hit that big thumbs up button on this video. It's the like button. Make sure you hit that if you guys like the content that you saw. But that's going to be it for me. I want to say thank you for watching Just Informed Talk. My name is Craig. Godspeed, and God bless each and every one of you, Patriots.